should just download the cost to provinces. She should talk to her colleague from Dundas, South Glengarry, who believes we should just get out of the whole national housing strategy, Mr. Speaker.
I mean, we did really a lot better this time. We're at question, honestly, question 22. The honourable member for Peterborough, Kawartha.
Zach has a job offer in my riding of Peterborough, Kawartha, but he cannot find affordable housing. Now, this is a common theme across the country. A lot of job vacancies, but no housing. How can we fix the employment crisis when we have a housing crisis? People need a place to live. It is a basic human need. How is Zach supposed to pay off his student debt if he cannot accept job offers? To the housing minister, will he continue to roll out one failed program after another? And is Zach the latest victim of his housing policy failure?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member talks about housing as a basic right. Guess what? When we brought the National Housing Strategy Act to recognize housing as a human right, that party voted against it. That is not...
Are we gonna come to order here? Awesome. Awesome. Are we ready to continue? All right, the Minister of Housing, and I will allow him to restart his answer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The solution to housing affordability is housing supply, Mr. Speaker. We're collaborating with municipalities through the Housing Accelerator Fund to build 100,000 new homes in the next two years and double the number of new homes built in the next 10 years. We're also extending supports through the first-time homebuyer incentive and the tax-free savings account to first-time home buyers. We're also tackling speculation by banning foreign ownership of Canadian residential real estate in the next 2 years, and we're building more affordable housing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, today the Environment Commissioner released another series of scathing reports on this government's climate failures. He showed that they're failing on carbon pricing, letting big polluters off the hook while Indigenous communities pay the price, failing to reduce emissions, relying on non-existent policies that undermine their credibility, failing on climate infrastructure, they can't even keep track of the impacts of their projects, and on a just transition, they are leaving workers and communities behind. How can Canadians trust this government's promises when we see failure after failure after failure after failure?
Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for her question. As I said earlier, we welcome the Commissioner's latest report and thank him for his findings. I don't know what's so controversial about that, Mr. Speaker. Over the last 6 years, we've made major progress on everything from putting a price on pollution to protecting historic amounts of our lands and water. And as we outlined in Budget 2022 and the emissions reduction plan, we are transitioning to a clean economy. We are putting a cap on emissions from Canada's oil and gas sector, and we're putting a price on pollution through to 2030. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Timmins, James Bay.
Well, God help our little planet with a minister like that in charge. Because if he read the Environment Commissioner's report, he would point out that energy workers are facing a potential economic upheaval as devastating as the collapse of the cod fishery in the 1990s.
I mean, I know the member from Timmins, James Bay has a big voice, but I'm having trouble hearing it all the way up here. And you know, this is what I'm going to do. A lot of times I'm getting ministers to repeat their answers. Well, I'm going to ask the member for Timmins, James Bay to repeat his question. Start from the beginning.
Well, Mr. Speaker, to the point, God help our planet with answers like that from the minister, because the Environment Commissioner today warned that energy workers are facing a potential economic upheaval as devastating as the collapse of the cod fisheries in the 1990s, and slogans and promises about a so-called just transition just won't cut it. The Commissioner reminds us this government has broken every environmental promise they made, and now they're breaking faith with energy workers and their families. It's simple. The climate crisis is here. How can that minister stand in this House and continue to show such a dismal record of failure?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Commissioner for the report, notwithstanding some concerns with the findings. Consultations on legislation were launched while I was Minister of Natural Resources, and I'm proud to say I'm continuing that work as Minister of Labour alongside my successor and my colleagues. We had a recent action. We've had a ministerial roundtable on sustainable jobs. We've had the relaunch of consultations on legislation and the Sustainable Jobs Training Centre, which demonstrate our government's ongoing commitment to achieving a transition that will lower emissions, build up renewables, and make sure that our workers are at the centre of it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Etobicoke Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, distress centres are life-saving resources in our communities, which have seen